In an era without reconnaissance satellites, having an efficient high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft would bring great convenience to a country's military. As a result, many specialized reconnaissance aircraft have emerged, with the U-2 being one of the more famous ones, and its influence even rising to the strategic level. While the reconnaissance capabilities of the U-2 are excellent, it also has many unavoidable flaws. For example, the aircraft's takeoff and landing requirements and the diplomatic issues brought about by its mission capabilities have limited its deployment, thereby affecting the aircraft's reconnaissance route planning. The main reconnaissance targets of the U-2 cover a vast area, and even though the aircraft has an almost 9,000 kilometers maximum range, it still feels insufficient. Therefore, the CIA proposed a plan to launch and recover U-2 reconnaissance aircraft on a mobile aircraft carrier, known as the Whale Legend Plan. The Whale Legend Plan began in August 1963, when the U-2 had already been in service for several years. Although the aircraft's weight is not very large, its size is not small either, with the wingspan of the initial model exceeding 24 meters, making takeoff and landing on a compact aircraft carrier no easy feat. Test pilot Bob Schumacher successfully took off from the USS Kitty Hawk in a U-2, and through continuous exploration, the U-2 reconnaissance aircraft seemed to be on the verge of becoming a true carrier-based reconnaissance aircraft. 3 U-2A reconnaissance aircraft underwent related modifications, such as reinforcing the aircraft landing gear, installing arresting hooks for landing, and making corresponding adjustments to the aircraft's wing structure. The modified carrier-based reconnaissance aircraft was called the U-2G. Compared to takeoff, the landing of the U-2G is very difficult to operate. The U-2G uses bicycle-type landing gear, which allows for takeoff with the assistance of a catapult, and its engine power is sufficient. However, landing is a completely different matter. The large wingspan requires the pilot to precisely control the landing position, making it very difficult to accurately hook onto the arresting wire. Although pilots use T-2 trainer aircraft to hone their carrier landing skills, the actual number of landings on the carrier was not high. The Whale Legend Plan did achieve some success. In addition to successfully exploring the U-2's carrier takeoff and landing capabilities, in May 1964, a U-2G conducted a real mission, monitoring a French nuclear test site that was inaccessible to land-based U-2s. It is unknown whether France, which thought it was very safe, ever felt a chill down its spine. Following the U-2G, Lockheed developed a larger U-2R carrier-based aircraft in 1967, which not only enhanced the aircraft's reconnaissance capabilities, but also doubled its range. However, the wings were changed to foldable, which at least saved some space on the deck. Despite the considerable effort put forth by the United States to turn the U-2 into a true carrier-based aircraft, it still could not change the fundamental problem of the U-2 being difficult to launch and recover on an aircraft carrier. Even experienced test pilots still experienced a high rate of failure after repeated practice. Practicing on carriers and aircraft with costs in the billions for every tiny mistake posed risks and costs that the military could not bear. Therefore, neither the U-2G nor the U-2R were officially put into service, and could only be considered experimental aircraft. The Whale Legend Plan did not yield any actual operational results. In addition to technical issues, a significant reason was the development of space technology. The appearance of reconnaissance satellites made many previously dangerous reconnaissance missions easy. Some locations that were difficult for aircraft to reach for photography could now be completed by satellites, without worrying about violating airspace and causing friction. Although satellites cannot completely replace reconnaissance aircraft, both can complement each other as effective reconnaissance methods. Interestingly, the selection of pilots for the carrier-based U-2 in the Whale Legend Plan was very strict. And because the plan was led by the CIA, most of the pilots were under the jurisdiction of the CIA, with a few being test pilots from Lockheed. The project was implemented on Navy aircraft carriers, and in order to protect the carriers and other valuable facilities, the Navy had very strict selection criteria for the pilots. In the end, the Navy only recognized a few pilots as qualified to fly the U-2 on aircraft carriers. In the early 1970s, Lockheed and the Navy also planned other functional carrier-based aircraft based on the momentum of the Whale Legend plan. Between 1973 and 1974, two U-2R aircraft underwent modifications, installing forward-looking radar and infrared detectors for maritime surveillance, and even considered equipping the U-2R with anti-ship missiles. None of these follow-up plans were completed, as they were considered to have no practical value.